All right, who let this guy in? Wait a minute. It's one of our favorite guests to come back to the Rail Talk studio. He's the man of the hour, dual Hall of Fame trainer, and the trainer of that big gray horse, Sandman, the winner of the Arkansas Derby. Mark Casse, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Oh, it's so great to have you. It's so great to see you on Saturday. And I just would love to hear your reflection on Saturday, because obviously this wasn't the end goal, but it's $1.5 million grade 1 race, super prestigious. You were building towards this all winter with Sandman. Can you just talk about how much that meant and how good that felt on Saturday to see him barrel down the stretch and hit the wire first?
Well, it was nice for Sandman. He's been very unlucky in his last 2 starts, and I felt like maybe he lost some fans, or some people had lost some confidence in him. And Saturday he said, "Hey, look at me. Mm-hmm. I am the boss." So for me, I appreciate, what everybody's, that I did a good job, says that I did a good job, but it was Sandman. And he just got to strut his stuff.
I think you're not giving yourself enough credit, because Joe and I were talking before about how, here's a raw horse, as raw as a 2-year-old can be, because literally a couple of months before we bought him, he was out in the field somewhere. He hadn't really been handled, hadn't really been prepped, certainly was not prepped for a sale. And then unfortunately, because of Bob Lothenbach's passing, they decided that they were going to put all their horses in dispersal sale. And all of a sudden, this big leggy, kind of goofy 2-year-old comes in and gallops. And out of all the horses that we looked at on the list, you kept turning back to, yeah, but he's not the gray horse. Yeah, but he's not the gray horse. Yeah, but and that ultimately set in motion our conversation with Joe and subsequently with Terry from West Point, who brought in Vinny and Chuck Sonson. And basically that's what put together the do we call ourselves the anti-Avengers or the villains? I don't know. But that's what put together all of us.
The villains would be more
well, there's already people in the industry that call us fuckface and asshole. So at this point,
John, what about the super friends? Can we be the super friends?
Super friends, all right. Anyway, but you had the foresight to see the forest of the trees and see the horse as a young, undeveloped kind of ball of clay, and said to us, "I'm going to do something that I haven't done in years, and that's send a contingent out to Oaklawn, because I want him to train there. I want him to train on that track. I want him to understand, that these races get longer and how to do it." What made you go that path as opposed to the safer path, which would have been, hey, I'm going to keep him on my farm and watch him train every single day and ship him out and run him occasionally at Gulfstream? I mean, that really would have been the easier way to go.
Well, I think, Joe, you and I talked, as we always do once a week, about the West Point horses. And I know Jon and I talked, and after he ran his last race at Churchill in the fall, I said, this horse is kind of unique. I said it to both you guys. Mm-hmm. I said, he needs to run.
Yeah.
And I said, he'll learn. And when I analyzed everything, to me, it made the most sense to go to Oaklawn. And so we went out there. Again, as you say, John, we knew, the races would get longer. And I felt like anybody that knows me, John knows me well. I'm a run guy. I like to run. I found it interesting. I recently read where Wayne Lucas, he said he was going to run his horse back into Lexington because he didn't want to give him 7 weeks between his win and go to the Derby. I feel the same way. I kind of like getting them in a rhythm or in a pattern. I also have personal thoughts, which I don't know that I want to share it with everybody.
Oh, come on. What are you coming on the show for then?
No,
it's only the 3 of us that are talking, Mark.
I think there's a lot of mistakes that are made. Mm-hmm. When we get good horses and when, we're trying to bring them back. And I do it a different way, and I think, yeah, but I'll keep that one to myself.
That's fair.
I mean, I said it before, like in a world where a lot of trainers just sit on their horses for 6-8 weeks because the sheets told them to. I think it's refreshing to talk to you, and when we asked you, hey, do this horse need a break to mature? And you said, no, he's going to learn by doing. He's going to learn by running. And I think that's a healthy philosophy. I just have a general question about prepping a horse for a race like the Kentucky Derby and going along this path, because, it's, you want to save a little bit of meat on the bone for that big race. Is it something like with him, he seems like a horse that's relatively easy to train. Does he just do it all himself, or is there a strategy behind training him for this race and then the next step and then the next step? Does the strategy differ from race to race when you're leading up to something like the Derby?
I don't think so. I think we're in a good rhythm. Again, I've said it a million times, and it goes back to Alan Jerkins. Mm-hmm. Run them when they're good, rest them when they're not running well. Every time you see him thriving, I also, I've taken, a lot of questions that were asking me in the last 3 months on many occasions. Oh, you didn't breeze him much, or you're not doing this and you're not doing that. And, I just, especially as I've gotten older, and probably, more experience, I find out that isn't quite as important. But you got to know your horse. Sandman puts a lot into his gallops. He's he's streamlined too, which is my kind of horse. John knows I say it all the time. I like a streamlined horse. I don't like those big, gawky, robust things. I don't think they stay around as long. He's a great mover. And if you guys remember, we got him in March. And as John said, he was just galloping, really kind of, Tom McLaughlin sold him, did a great job. I don't think he had him very long.
No.
But he came and boom, boom, boom. I kept saying, I worked him 3/8. Really? Already? I worked him at, really? Already?
Yeah.
I worked him 5/8 from the gate. Really? Already?
Yep.
Right there starts telling you that he's a pretty good horse, because good horses do things easier. If you think about it, if you have to run, we're running 100 yards or whatever, and you have to give everything you have to run in 10 seconds. And John, he can run in 10, doing it and his 7, level 7. Well, it doesn't take as much out of him. Good horses, for the most part, do things easier. And so when they do them easier, they get fitter and ready faster. Now, his problem was he handled everything fitness-wise wonderful. I mean, boom, boom, boom. But mentally,
right,
he struggled a little bit. Now, I've trained in my career, probably trained 30 tappets. And anybody that trains tappets know that they can be a handful.
Yep.
Not this one.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
This one is pure class. He handles everything. You watch him. The Oaklawn paddock is very tight. I mean, You have all these horses in very close, and the people are standing above you.
Right.
Didn't bother one iota.
No.
You take him out, you walk him out in front of 60,000 people. He walks out there. No, nothing.
Yeah.
And that's important. That's important for a lot of things. One, he's got a lot of racing experience, and you're going to need that in the Kentucky Derby, because we all know that there's a lot of bouncing around and there's a lot of things that can happen. He, in my opinion, will have a better shot overcoming those because of all the races he's run. So, that's important. But going forward, he's a grade 1 winner. He's got an impeccable pedigree. And I don't know if you know, Joe, but for I guess it was in the 80s, I was the general manager of Mockingbird Farm. And I think 4 or 5 years in a row, we had the freshman sire, leading freshman sire. I would go out and buy them.
Wow.
And we would do it. And we didn't have a big budget. I think the most I ever spent for a horse was for in-sweep, $500,000. But the one thing that I always said, if I'm going to look out and see 40 of his foals running around in our paddocks, because that's what we would have. We would have 40 or 50 foals.
Right.
And they look like him. Are you going to be happy? Well, I'm going to tell you this. If you have 50 or 60 or 70 foals that look like Sandman,
right,
you're not going to be happy. You're going to be very happy.
Yeah.
And then to go along, if you can have a great mind, if he passes that mind on,
right.
Yep.
He is a superstar.
Yeah, no question about it. And Mark, we've mentioned about, how important it is to have experience, in these races, whether it's the trainer or the jockey or the horse themselves. What made you decide to switch and take Christian off the horse and put Jose on the horse, especially because Jose had ridden the horse twice before, and it was the only 2 times that the horse didn't hit the board. So it was not like an easy decision of, oh, okay, I'm going to give one of the Ortiz brothers a chance to ride the horse. I mean, it wasn't necessarily a match made in heaven, at least according to the PPs.
Yeah, I love Christian. Christian learned to ride on our farm. His brother works for us now.
Yep.
So it was difficult. Obviously, he did a tremendous job in this. Was it the Southwest?
Yeah, Southwest.
He stayed on. I don't know how he did it.
Yep.
I thought, coming back, was it the Rebel, I guess. I don't think he did a lot wrong.
Right.
He got kind of caught up behind the, Brian Hernandez decided to got in front of us. You ever have people, is there anything more frustrating when somebody flies by you and then stops and you're like what? They go by going 70 and then they get in front of you and go 60. And that's what happened. And when that happened, that made us lose a lot of ground early. Not Christian's fault. It was just circumstances. No doubt in my mind, if Christian rode him on Saturday, he would have won. Given the pace scenario, everything, Jose didn't do anything different than what Christian would have done. But I didn't ride Jose in the Arkansas Derby for the Arkansas Derby. I rode Jose in the Arkansas Derby for the Kentucky Derby. That's why I did that. And as I said and told Christian, you still have to experience that. You have to that's something, and it will come. And I have to tell you, he came up to me right before the race. I was standing down on the rail, and he said, "Good luck." Yeah.
He was so classy. After the horse won, he was giving him a standing ovation.
Yes, he came, and I put my arm around him, and I said, "One day this is going to be you."
Yep.
But it's just not the right time right now.
Right. Yep.
And
absolutely.
So the move was not for the Arkansas Derby. The move was for the Kentucky Derby.
Right.
And Jose's had a lot of success in Louisville and at Churchill. He's ridden all the big races. It was kind of ironic if you look the couple times that he rode Sandman. He didn't run very well, but that didn't slow me down one iota.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, the first race was his debut, and then the Iroquois. I mean,
and Jose came back that day and said, "I messed up."
Yeah.
Right.
And the only reason Jose was supposed to ride him when he broke his maiden at Saratoga, Jose actually came out and breezed him at Saratoga. I think, I probably asked Jose to come one time at Saratoga to breeze a horse, and it was Sandman. And you know why I did it? I wanted him to have confidence because he had ridden him and he didn't run as good as we had hoped. And I said, I want you to come back and work this horse. I want you to realize and know that he's as good as you thought he was. And he worked him. He goes, there's no way. He's a good horse. I said, yes. But he rode Kentucky Downs, I think, that day. I think that may have been opening day. And of course, Dylan rode him and rode him well. But I always said, even after Dylan wanted to go and ride him. I said, Dylan, this is Jose's horse.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And here you guys are. Let's talk real quickly about the Derby, because I know Jon has the Florida decoupling thing he wants to ask about as well. But what do the next couple of weeks look like for Sandman? Like you mentioned that you're not a huge guy in terms of he always got to breeze every single week. He's going to get there later tonight. What's the next couple of weeks look like? And then subsequently, what do you want the Derby to shape up like? Because I think the only knock on him, if there is one, is that he's a late runner and might need a little bit of pace to close into. Do you think that's true? Do you think he needs those kind of splits in the Derby, or you think he can win without it?
I don't know. Look, hopefully we get a decent post. He has enough speed. The key to him is he wants you to grab him and he wants to get in a rhythm. Now, the farther you go, the easier it is for that to happen. Right. So before he needed pace, because especially going a mile and a 16th, it takes him a while to get in gear. Even in the Arkansas Derby, Jose came to me. We had talked earlier, but he came in the paddock. He goes, since the track's dried out and they've started conditioning, he goes, they're not coming back. And he said, what do you want me to do? I said, this is important, but it's not the end game. I said, I want you to let him get himself into a rhythm and see what happens. And that's what he did. And so that's what you're going to have to do as well. You're going to have to do as well. In the Derby, you're going to be able to be, but I think, as I said, Joe, going farther, going a mile and a quarter, I think he'll be naturally a little closer. And you know what? I know I look back, Classic Empire, they run the half. Usually they'll run half a mile in 46 and change. They're not going to be walking.
Yeah, exactly. No,
they're going to be walking.
No, because everyone's going to have their adrenaline pumping from the jockeys to the horses. So that there's naturally going to be horses. I said it this morning with Steve Bick. There's naturally going to be horses that don't show speed, that are going to be closer to the engine because the jockeys are going to be so geeked up.
Yeah. Well,
or if they draw outside, they got to hustle to cross over
50,000 people, and
yeah. Yep. You said before, last question for me about the Derby. You said before, if we get a good post, what constitutes a good post for you?
Not the one.
Okay. Great. Now
that's what I said when we went with War of Will. He drew the one, and then in the Preakness I said anything but the one, and he drew the one again. Yep. And then in the Belmont I said I want the one.
What was he, 9 or something?
Yeah.
So is it just you don't want the rail? If we end up pulling 19 or 20, that's okay.
In the middle somewhere.
In the middle.
It's a lot different now too, since they have the one gate.
Right.
Yeah.
The divided gate cost me, I think, the Kentucky Derby with Classic Empire. He was in the 14, so we were like, yes, we're in the main gate. The problem is from the 14 to the 15 is about 10, 15 yards.
Yeah.
10 yards. And when those horses come out, they come down and they can't stop their momentum. So if you and I were next to each other and I went like this, I could knock you a little bit. But if I stepped back 10 feet and took off running and hit you, it would be, and that's what happened. They came down on him and just,
wipe them out.
So on a muddy racetrack where you wanted to be fairly close to the pace, he was like next to last. Going down you know who he was in front of? What was the horse of Godolphin's that came out bucking?
Thunder Snow.
Who was it?
Thunder Snow.
Yeah, that was the only horse we were in front of.